so very excited to have Sheriff Grady Judd from Polk County, Florida, with us today. Many of you know my history and my family's history in law enforcement. We talk about that a good bit and how thankful we are for sheriffs like Sheriff Grady. It's amazing, sir, what you're doing, how Florida is seeing so much improvement under your leadership, and how criminals are getting more time at your bed and breakfast. I like that very much. And so we want to say thank you, sir. We want to talk about a couple things that are very important to our country. And one of those is human trafficking. Another one is the open border and how that's affecting Florida. So I like to just kind of give our guest an open platform, and I'll butt in a little bit here and there. But thank you, sir, for being with us. We're honored to have you, and we wish we had more sheriffs like you around the nation.
Well, thank you very much. It's a true honor to be the sheriff of Polk County, and it's also an honor to be able to be with you today and speak with your constituents.
Thank you, sir. Our folks that are listening, they don't need a whole lot of fire under their feet to get them moving, but we do believe that there are others that are going to be hearing that will. But we need information. There's a lot of missing links, a lot of missing information for even people that are in the church that are wanting to do something and wanting to do right and wanting to be a voice. I tend to think that the border crisis is a lot worse than what people think. And I think it hits at home and it's closer to people's doorsteps than what they think it is. Could you speak to that a little bit, sir, and give us your input and maybe what you're doing in Polk County about that?
Certainly, first and foremost, this country, this nation has immigration laws, federal immigration laws. And if we followed those immigration laws and only allowed people to come here appropriately, lawfully, then we wouldn't have the crisis we have today. Now, they want to tell you that there's not a crisis at the border. And anyone that tells you that, they're not just misleading you, they're absolutely, totally lying to you.
Yep.
I want you to think about this for a second. Probably 250,000 people have died of fentanyl overdoses alone since 2018.
Wow.
So where does the fentanyl come from? It comes from Sinaloa, Mexico. That's right. Where do the ingredients come from? China. China to Mexico. They blend it. They send it across the border to California, to Texas, and spread it throughout the nation. So every community, I don't care if your town is so small you don't even have a traffic light, to the major cities of Los Angeles on one coast and New York City on the other, everyone in between is a border entry point for drugs and for illegal aliens. Now, we have to understand, there are those illegal aliens coming here inappropriately and against the law. Their sole purpose is to do better for their family,
yep,
raise their children in an appropriate Christian, Catholic, usually, environment, and work hard. That's not the people I'm going to talk to you about.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to you about the other group of illegal aliens that come here. Now, the cartel controls all of this traffic. The hardworking people that just want to come here to do better for themselves and their family, and the criminal cartel that is smuggling fentanyl across the border. If any other thing was killing 218,000 people since 2018 alone, there would be a major federal uproar by the government to stop it, to change it. But we hear nothing from this federal government about that. Oh, there's not a problem. Well, yes, there is. And here's what happens. The cartel pushes a large group of people through the border in one area, ties up Border Patrol and all the police resources. And while everyone's tied up here, then they sneak across the border drugs, methamphetamine, fentanyl, and victims of human trafficking. That's right. They smuggle people across the border to indenture them. And that is another crisis. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can watch the evening news. You can listen to all the slick tongued politicians that you want. They're not going to tell you the truth. The truth is, I've been to the border. I've been to the border with Governor DeSantis, our governor in Florida, who is an outstanding governor. I have seen the crisis firsthand. I've seen the crisis firsthand in Polk County, Florida, where people died of fentanyl overdoses,
Mm.
and they still do, hand over fist. I've seen the border crisis here in Polk County when, while we're doing human trafficking operations, we encounter and rescue young girls and young ladies who are smuggled here through Mexico to be indentured into what I call human slavery, the human slave trade of prostitution. It's horrible. It's real. And we've got to have a situation where we have a federal government and the executive branch of the federal government and the congressional branch of the federal government that stands up, not as Republicans, not as Democrats, not as independents, but as real Americans, and said, we're going to stop this.
Yes.
And heretofore, that's not happened.
This is a major crisis that I think it has to be taken care of at the ballot box for sure, to remove a lot of these participants in Congress and other branches of our government from being able to participate in this anymore. It all boils down to money, I think, and would be surprised how that bleeds up. And so when you're seeing this happen in your county, I know that when I'm giving a sermon in church on Sunday, one of the most powerful, impactful things is a story. Because we think we hear the problem, but we don't hear how it really impacts John or Joe or Susie or their children or their family. Do you have anything that you could share that might just cause our eyes to open a little bit more and open our heart?
Certainly. Let me start with this event. In our human trafficking operation that we did not long ago, we arrested 228 people. That was a combination of prostitutes, Johns, victims of human trafficking, and hardcore sexual predators of children, the entire gamut. But we also rescued 13 victims of human trafficking. And here's what happened. They were brought from Cuba through Central America, smuggled into Mexico, and then smuggled into the United States. Then when they got into the United States, the federal government flew them for free to any border town or any airport of their choosing once they processed them through as illegal aliens. We call it catch and release.
Yeah.
They flew them to New York. From New York, they were run by a madam out of South Florida. She would call them up and say, okay, I need you to fly into Tampa, Florida. When you fly into Tampa, Florida, we're going to send a handler with you. See, a handler stays with them all the time to make sure that they don't flee from her control. And that's what occurred. And then the handler drove them to our undercover location where they were to engage in sexual conduct with what they thought were bad guys or Johns. And in fact, it was law enforcement, and we arrested them and took them into custody. And then we found out they were victims of human trafficking. Wow. What's interesting about that is these young ladies originated in Cuba, and they went to Central America, and then into Mexico, and then across the Texas border. And then the United States processed them and gave them a free ticket, and they went to New York City. Yeah. Well, what we discovered through that operation, when we discovered them as victims, this ticket, much to our surprise, it was allowing them to fly any place in the country. So they would use that same set of documents and fly from New York to Tampa in order to prostitute. So based upon what they told us, the federal government was facilitating them being victimized as victims of human trafficking And the federal government was flying them around the country where they were expected to prostitute themselves under the supervision of a predator. And all of that was under a international or national operation being run by a lady known as a human trafficker out of South Florida. Isn't that horrifying?
That really ticks me off to have something like that going on. Is that the Department of Homeland Security that's paying for those things, or?
Well, the money is flowing through DHS, but this is a policy. This is an executive policy that when they come across the border, it's called catch and release. They round these folks up, they document them, and then they tell them you can fly any place in the country you want for free. Now, keep in mind, they don't even have the appropriate identification, if you will. Many
Right.
times they are simply who they say they are, whether that's their actual name or not. And then they said, oh, we'll give you a court date to come back to immigration court at a later time, normally years away. And the reality of it is the illegal immigration is out of control. We have, whether the president or whether Congress wants to admit it, we have an open border, a totally open border. So here's what I'm saying to you. We don't need to look at one congressman or one U.S. senator or one president.
Mm-hmm.
We need to look at all of them.
Yeah.
And say, Congress, if you all can't put aside politics and look out for the best interests of the people in this country, we need to vote you all out of office, every last one of you. And the reality of it is that's the only thing that's going to get their attention.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I tell folks, if you're waiting for the politicians in Washington, D.C. to solve this problem, it won't be solved.
That's right.
It's got to be solved by the different houses of worship across this nation as Christians, as God-fearing people, regardless of your denomination, regardless of your religious beliefs. We've all got to band together and say, this is our United States of America.
Yeah.
This is our country. And the ministers have got to begin this, what I call not a revolution, but an awakening of the people of this nation to understand that our politicians are more interested in getting reelected than they are in keeping you safe.
That's right.
And quite frankly, it's not fair to those people that are coming here illegally. It's certainly not fair to the victims of human trafficking that are being forced into this country illegally. And it's not going to change until the churches all hand in arm say enough is enough. We want to get back to the founding principles of this great country. And this is the great United States of America.
Yes, sir. This is something that's really burning in my heart that you started talking about there, Sheriff, was the churches have got to get on board. I tell people quite often that the most influential voice in a community is the pulpit, and that's in any community. But right now in America, the most weakest voice is the pulpit. And we need some ministers that have some backbone, that's not worried about losing their congregation, losing their salaries, and losing their influence among their people, and just stand up for right and talk what's right. Because we have a lot in this community that in the pulpit community, if I could say it that way, that are professional preachers, and that's what they went to school to learn to do and to be their career. But historically in America, the pulpit has been the defender of liberty. It's been a defender of righteousness as well. And it's been a defender of the purpose and the call of this nation. And I thank you very much for bringing that up. We have to get the church back into a place to where we are doing what we need to do, not just trying to get to heaven, but to get heaven and earth. And that's what Jesus said to us to do. And it affects the quality of life when we're not doing this. And crime, like you're talking about, prostitution, human trafficking, the drugs, all of these things affect the quality of life. And I'm saying all this to bring me to a point that I'd like for you to address is that during World War II, the German church shut their doors and kept singing their songs as the trainloads of Jews went off to concentration camps. And it wasn't very long till the church people were loaded on those because they did keep quiet. How does this affect our quality of life when we just turn a blind eye to everything that's going on in our community and we don't address it? We don't be a voice, whether we're church folks or not.
Well, Pastor, you're exactly right. I can tell you that it's our job as Christians, it's our job as men and women of faith to look out for everyone, every last person in this country, whether they're here legally or illegally.
Yeah.
They're all God's children. And we have to stand united in order to do that. We have to look at our elected representatives, our elected U.S. senators, and our president and his executive staff and say, you have an obligation to look out for everyone.
Yes.
But the pastors have to be the leaders.
Yeah.
This country is desperate for real leaders that will tell the truth, that will look out for, that will protect, that
Yeah.
will not only lead, but look out for everyone. Listen, this county has a 50-year low crime rate. This
Wow.
county has over 800,000 people. We don't have one XXX rated theater.
Hey,
We don't
good.
have one nude dancing establishment. We don't have one illegal massage parlor. But we fought a big fight. I wasn't the sheriff at the time, but I was in charge of that as the commanding officer. And it was my detectives that, with me and with the permission of my sheriff and our state attorney that agreed to prosecute, that we put that out of business. I suggest to you to show me another county of 800,000 people that doesn't have nude dancing establishment, XXX rated theaters, illegal massage parlors. We don't have that. We don't have that because the Christian church and the Jewish synagogue stood together,
Wow.
arm in arm, and said, we're not going to have that ugliness in this county. We elected the sheriff to make sure that didn't happen. We
Yeah.
elected the state attorney to make sure that didn't happen. And we're going to hold them and our county commissioners accountable if they don't do something about it. But they didn't have to force our state attorney and our sheriff to do something about it. They stood behind us and supported us. That's why it's not here. And that's why today, as I grew up in this organization and was the next generation of sheriff, we still don't have that. And we have a 50-year low crime rate because our community says we want to be safe. We want to feel safe. We hire you to operate on our behalf.
Yeah.
We want you to be sensitive. We want you to be helpful. We want you to be kind.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to be generous. We want you to be sincere. But we want you to lock people up that are taking advantage
Yeah.
of all people in this community, and that's what we do. Well, that has to happen nationwide.
Yes,
The
sir.
only reason we were successful is because of the church body in this county.
Wow.
That's the only way we're going to be successful in any state or all the states in this nation is when the churches and the synagogues and the mosque and all the people who support and believe in God, regardless
Yes.
of our individual philosophies, stand together and say, no, we're not going to allow crime. We're not going to allow victimization.
Yes,
We're
sir.
not going to allow abuse of anyone in this country. And under this current political system, they are allowing some groups of people to be victimized.
Yes,
And
sir.
that's not acceptable.
Yes, sir. That's so good. The church has got to come into a point of saying we're ready to partner with our law enforcement and help them be the eyes, ears, and streets, and be those on their knees for them. Where do you see America headed through all this political storms that are ahead of us. What do you see for us? And the reason I'm asking this question, I interviewed another gentleman who was a 24-year veteran Border Patrol agent, and he was told me things like there are 200,000 Chinese men of military age that have come into this country. There are 86, 87,000 that our government flew over here from Afghanistan that are military age. There are many others that are coming in from different parts of the world, from Iran, going to Venezuela, learning Spanish, cleaning up, coming across our border as Venezuelans who can come in freely. These are military age Iranians. What do you see unfolding in our country, and how should the American people, as citizens, gun owners, people who love their nation, be prepared? Because nobody's talking about what's really getting ready to take place.
Well, first and foremost, I'm the eternal optimist. I believe in the United States of America, and I believe in our strength and energy.
Yes, sir.
But I also believe we have allowed cancerous cells of communism to invade this country. But just like a good cancer hospital, and I'll take Moffitt over in Tampa in our community, Moffitt can wipe out cancer and restore life and restore health and restore hope.
Yeah.
This country can restore health and life and hope because we're that kind of strong.
Yeah.
But if we sit and do nothing as a church, as a community, as a city, as a county, as a state, as a nation, we will allow this communistic cancer to take over. And that's their goal. So that's why I'm saying, is it too late? No, it's not too late. Are we strong and vibrant? Yes, we are.
Yep.
But I can tell you there are dangerous communist cancer cells that are planted in this country. And if we sit by silently and do nothing, evil will prevail.
Yes.
And one of a great orator said that in 1775, and it was never any more true than it is today.
Yes, sir. I believe that as well. I believe it with all my heart. I don't discount the supernatural power of God as well, moving through his people. And I think we are in a very critical place in our country to where we're either going to see evil triumph because good people do nothing, or we're going to see this nation come into the fullness of what it was designed to be by our founders, and I really believe also by God. Sheriff, I want to say thank you, sir, for your time with me today. I know you're a busy man, and to have this much time of someone who's doing what you're doing and what your team is doing is very humbling to me. I not only want to say thank you to you, but I want to say thank you to your team, your entire department, all the way from the dispatchers to the cooks and the detectives, everyone on patrol. You are an inspiration and a light to the rest of the nation. And I don't know how often that gets said to you and to those that work with you, but your whole department is a light to the nation. And we look forward to many more good reports that are coming from you. I want to just say this before I end it. One of my favorite statements that you've ever made, and I've watched some of your YouTube stuff, is that whenever a shooter comes into a church, shoot so many holes in him that you can read a newspaper through him. And so that's right. And I think the church is in a place that we are coming into our standing to a place that we're not going to allow those things to happen anymore. So, Sheriff, thank you, sir. I really appreciate you and am honored that you've been here with us today.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you for this time today. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Amen.